Are you a mom who loves fun, momming, and protecting your family? If you want to meet some of the most amazing people from all over the gun world and beyond, you are in the right place. Tune in for encouragement and sometimes just courage for moms and women just like you, who are curious about shooting but are intimidated or just don't know where to start. Welcome back to part 2 with my interview with John, the ex-Special Forces problem solver. So excited to have you guys listen to the rest of this. It's going to be amazing. Let's get started. So a couple of things that my husband had mentioned to me is that there was a couple stories that stuck out, and maybe you can speak to them or not.
Okay.
But there was one that was a repatriation of gold and aircraft.
Well, those are two different ones. One is still ongoing, so we won't talk too much about that one, which is gold and silver. But yeah, we've had opportunities to repatriate equipment or assets for wealthy people, or sometimes even for our own government. We've had in that particular case, I want to say it was 2016 or 17. There was aircrafts in a country in South America that had been seized from a wealthy individual in Texas. And so in that situation, there was a lot of, like I was telling your husband, you got to do a lot of due diligence when you go into these things. You take for granted in the military, all that's really done for you by the time it gets to you as a team leader or whatever position you're in. But a lot of due diligence, one is just sort of making sure that the person that wants to hire you is who they say they are, and were those aircraft seized because he was doing something illicit, and if it was, are you willing to get involved in that world? And if that's the case, then is the price right, to get involved in that world? And then things like aircrafts are obviously very difficult. You can't just go and snatch up a bunch of aircrafts, from a country, and you need to have cover stories and get access to the aircraft and have your own pilots that can sort of take a look at them, make sure they're functioning. Because again, you don't want to just jump in one and try and fly it. And
these are things that I wouldn't have thought of. I was like, oh yeah, you just hop in and
you just
figure
hop
it
in.
out, like in the movies.
Right. We train everybody. It used to be Nintendo. Now everybody's on, PS4s and 5s and just flight simulators, and we just all jump right in and fly them. So, no.
How did you get down there? Like, how did you figure it out?
A lot of times, because a lot of us do work for oil companies, sometimes a good cover story is just sort of being a forward or advanced team, for a company that's wants us to come down and look, see what logistics are available, and see what security issues may be there. And you go the full gamut. Sometimes you have your IDs and things like that, and backstories all down, and you spend several weeks just sort of putting the money into that cover story to make it look like you certainly don't want to skimp on that cover story, and you want offices, and you don't want to go over the top. I mean, getting people to be confident in you a lot of times is just really about just being relaxed and confident, and they'll buy into a lot of things. So but you get all that in place, and then of course you don't want to go straight to the aircrafts. You want to sort of let them kind of lead you that direction. We may need some aircrafts, we may need some trucks, we need and you already know what kind of aircrafts you're looking for, so you may give them a list. It's almost like a magician forcing a card. Eventually you get them to, oh yeah, I have these 2 aircrafts, and then, oh, can we see them? Can we have a couple guys inspect them? And then it's just a matter of just having everybody ready to go, and
and then you just got in the planes and you're like, okay,
yeah,
we're good.
you go. Yeah. In this particular case, it was they kind of knew that we were going to be taking them sort of for a test flight. They just didn't know they were going to be flown out of the country. So yeah,
just small details,
right? And and then you also got to always consider, am I going to be back in that country for another job at some point? So if I'm given some sort of cover, there's a lot of things you got to go through. It could take, for an operation like that, it could take months before you actually have to make a play on the assets. So.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And then you got your own government you got to worry about. You don't know what operations they're doing in there, and are you crossing over and interfering with something there? And I've had cases with cartels, and where we've been contacted by cartels sometimes you get contacted by lower ranking members sometimes, or mid to high ranking members who are having a conflict with, you know, another member. Or in this, I can think of one case with a brother versus brother type thing, who were just sort of fighting over money, as they do, and, you know, attacking each other. But then there's threats of kidnapping each other's children. And so if you get, it's always a delicate situation if somebody's going to hire you like a cartel. Obviously, it's not something you just jump into and say, yeah, I'd love to be on a list somewhere as working for you. So a lot of times, you know, maybe you'll go to your contacts in our government and kind of let them know what's going on and see what they have. And maybe sometimes you end up double dipping and, you know, contracting with our government to get intel while working, you know.
I can see that, like pulling those kind of resources to kind of help another project.
Right. So, yeah. So if you didn't do that, of course you'd be on a list somewhere. And, you know, I've had occasions, you know, just subtle things like going to a bank and somehow through the Treasury's financial center, the FinCEN, you know, they have me listed as a mercenary. And then there's a big controversy. And you're like, well, I didn't put me down as a mercenary. Who put me down as a mercenary? And so, and those things can make a difference. Crossing a border and something in the system alerts them, and you got to work all that out. But you don't want to be on our government's list as somehow
as a mercenary. My name is John. I play basketball, and I'm a mercenary.
That's right. I play basketball at the YMCA. So, but yeah, they're all interesting. I don't think I've ever taken a job, at least as a private contractor, that wasn't interesting. I mean, they all seem to be very weird. The one I'm working on now with the gold and silver is very strange. I'm happy to talk about it once it's over, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So was there any job that you got in and you're just like, nope, I'm ripcording out of this thing. This is not worth it? Or you just like, you do your due diligence beforehand?
Yeah, that's right. No, I don't think there's ever been a job when I've gotten in the middle of it and thought, no, this is not what I thought it was going to be or whatever. There's always going to be something that pops up that's you're not expecting. You try to plan for everything, but you know, the frictions and fogs of war are always present, and you're aware of that. But if you do enough due diligence, you know, you generally can head that off, and you don't really have to worry about it. I mean, there's been situations where you may have to shift gears in the middle of it when new information comes, or you do find out that, because what you also got to be careful with private contracting is, which seems like a no-brainer, but the person that's trying to contract you is always going to paint the other side as the villain. And so again, this is where that objectiveness comes in. And I think a lot of guys, special ops, we learn it, for instance, you know, not to get too sidetracked, but like when you're in Iraq, the very guys that the foreign nationals that I'm employing for jobs and stuff on contracts are the very guys that were shooting at us during the war, you know, and we were shooting at them, but now we're all working together. And it's not unusual to find a guy that was in the same battle as you or the same firefight on the opposing side. Yeah. So you got to be very objective and about how you see people, you know, get kind of I don't try to take what people tell me about somebody, and I take it with a grain of salt, just sort of put it in the back of my mind. But I generally judge people on how they treat me when I meet them, how they speak with me, because it's been my experience that, you know, everybody's got a dark side and can turn to that dark side under the right circumstances. And for somebody to think that they don't, or to presume that somebody doesn't, is a foolish thing to do. So, yeah.
No, that's really interesting. I like that. That shift, like, yeah, everybody has kind of like different, you take one person, you put them in two different situations and you get two different results, and being able to kind of like parse that person out and being able to put them into a different light can certainly help, especially when negotiating or trying to like avoid conflict.
Right. So when they paint the other side, you take that information and you try to corroborate some of it. You'll find in this business that you know a lot of people around the world, so you have a network of people that you know, and it is a small world, and you might take a job in, you know, Algiers, and you know, you run a couple names by people you know in Jordan, and they're like, oh yeah, we know this person, or whatever, and then you get a lot more information. And you don't always divulge that information, but you put that information to the side as well while you're dealing with them, and keep it in mind and look for things that are sort of consistent with what you've been told, and then use it accordingly. So
I think that translates to everything. I think people
Sure.
always tend to like have their view of somebody,
Right.
women, not like women never talk about each other.
No, no,
We never do that. But we don't take that into consideration. Like, well, what was their take on this, or what was their side, and how are they coloring this person? I've met
right.
many people where I've heard one thing about somebody, and then I meet them, and I'm like, well, that's not true. Like, I don't see anything that corroborates any of that. Maybe something that they, their filters that they're seeing, or
Right.
just being situational awareness when you are walking in an area and you kind of like look at other people and like who's a threat, who isn't a threat. Like nowadays it's hard to tell because
Right.
people have mental illness and you don't know.
Right. And you want to go with your gut. If you don't know more information, your gut will tell you. And we've all had that situation, even as kids, where we're uncomfortable meeting somebody. We're not sure why we're not uncomfortable or why this person feels like a threat, but my brain is saying this person, there's something wrong here, which is really a very primitive sort of disgust sensitivity. Again, that's very much rooted in, and we don't have enough time for that, but it's very much rooted in, our evolutionary need to fight off disease and pestilence, and how to identify those types of diseases and threats to us through human behavior and the way somebody looks and appears and stuff. And it tells our brain, in a very primitive part of our brain, that, hey, there's something wrong with this person. Our brain automatically assumes they got some sort of pestilence or something they can pass on and affect us. So let's keep them at a distance. And then, as you know, as you start to get to know the person, then you a lot of times you feel comfortable with the person as you get to know them. But there was always that one thing in the beginning that sort of made you think, something's not right.
Yeah.
And our brain, sometimes it could just be symmetry of the face wasn't right, and we didn't know. So yeah, you got to be very careful on how you approach those things.
So, and that kind of like translates over to like, what recommendation could you give to women as far as like, because we're walking around and there's other human beings on earth with 50 pounds of more muscle on them that may or may not have intent to do harm. Like,
right.
What would you recommend for them to like be safe?
Well, wow. We're really
big question
here. Well, it's a big question for me because I've spent years working on, as a PhD student, working on sort of, I hate to say evolutionary sexual behavior, sort of but human behavior and what it's ultimately rooted in, ultimate causes, which you've probably already heard me mention evolution a few times, but I'm very much a big proponent of the biological side of behavior and evolution. And so this opens up a big thing. I mean, obviously men, we have a much greater upper body strength for a reason. We were designed to fight other men, and so nowadays we use it sort of as a, to lift heavy objects in, but it wasn't what the intended evolutionary design was. It was to fight other men. And there's what they call byproducts, same thing with a deer's antlers is to fight other males, but it can also be used to defend against predation and wolves and whatever. That's a byproduct of its ultimate design. So similar kind of thing. So understanding those differences, because what happens, I always tell people, really get to understand the biological side. We all understand the social theories behind men and women, and we're all going through a big thing in this country with a lot of political correctness type stuff. But I always like to strip it down to the bare essentials of just biology and how we have primitive drives that we're hungry, we're thirsty, whether it's pursuit of sexual behavior, whatever it may be. And because it all starts there. And then all of our social environmental cues and values start, pushing back and forth with our primitive drives to come out with some sort of behavioral reaction. But one, understand that, men are stronger, but through evolution, females have their own strengths. They may not be physically strong, but they're obviously, we see a lot more ability to analyze situations and to sort of organize their thoughts. And they also have a very keen ability to read facial features that men don't have. So they can recognize hostility in the face of other men, and men that us men can't even recognize. And so go with those gut feelings, like we talked about before. If you don't know the person, we always like to think the gun is a great equalizer. Again, it comes down to whether or not, you can react and do something. I tend to think that, things like knives are a little more, they're closer up, but to me, they're a little more deadly and more threatening, but they're also more visceral in terms emotionally, and you'll have to get close. But I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, I think that recognizing and understanding and accepting the fact that there are biological differences that make men stronger in some areas and women stronger in other areas, and taking advantage of those abilities and honing those things,
So what I hear you saying is just using your intuition and kind of like honing that and being able to be aware of people around you, listen to your gut. I think a lot of times women feel like, oh, I don't want to offend that person, or I don't want to upset them, or I don't want to prejudge. And it's like, yeah, we don't, for sure, in most situations, but there are times where it's warranted. Like, are you alone? Are you in a place where you can get to safety? Are there people that can help you in that situation? If not, then it may be time to couch that societal, like, oh, you have to be accommodating and open-minded. That there's a balance where you were talking about being open-minded and being like, open to conversation. Fantastic. Other situations, not so much.
And how many times have we, as ourselves, as little kids, or we tell other kids they don't want to hug an aunt or somebody, and we're like, do it, push them against their own primitive thoughts of uncomfortable, and we push them to it. So we sort of get that put into us, and as we grow older, we tend to, like you said, we don't want to be rude, offend somebody, God forbid, which we have a lot of that in this country anyway. So it's sort of pick and choose how we're going to offend, but.
Yeah, you're going to offend somebody anyway, but
always.
I don't know. I'd rather have offended somebody than get hurt.
Right. Yeah.
I try not to. I'm a nice person generally.
Yeah, and obviously the show isn't to get into all the political stuff, but there's certain strengths that biologically that females do have, and in terms of how to sway men. And I'm not saying that women should all do that. I'm saying understand what your assets are and always have that toolbox available. I'm not saying a woman needs to go sleep with somebody that wants to attack them, but there's certain biological things that females have, whether what they call in the biological world ornaments, or whether it's just sweet talking, or it doesn't always have to be force, to take that fear and use. Try to push back, because you're not going to be able to forcefully push me back.
Right.
So you got to use the powers that you were born with, which involve quite a few other things that actually will trigger a male's brain to change his mind, or maybe change his motivation depending on the situation. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a way that you can de-escalate situations that other people can't. And certainly, like if you are unarmed or just in a situation where you just are uncomfortable, using that asset, not panicking, staying calm, and trying to calm the situation down. And there have been times where when I was younger, I moved out here to Arizona, or no, before I moved out here, I was visiting, and I was staying at my parents' house while they were out of town, and I had a summer job or whatever. And it was late at night. I got in my car and I left, and this car started following me. And I started getting a little concerned, because it was like, I didn't live close to where I was working. So I started making like 4 right, turns, and they were following me 4 right turns. And I panicked. Like I didn't want to go home, because now these people would know where I was. I didn't know what their intent was. So I drove to a friend of mine's house, and that I knew had several large, angry, armed men that lived with him.
Right.
And I pulled up to that driveway and ran up to the door, and I was like banging on the door. I was like, these guys are following me. And they all grabbed their guns and got in their car and started looking around for these guys. And they didn't find them. But that situation, like that was the only thing I could think of, like either that or, and this was before smartphones. That's how old I am. Wow. So I couldn't just like look up on a map, like, where's the local police station, or, but now I think I have like, obviously I have my gun on my purse, and oftentimes I have the rifle in the back of my car, and have like this thought process of like just stopping somewhere and then just crawling into the back and lifting up the lift gate with my AR like pointed at him, like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. And like I've said in the beginning, sometimes violence is the answer, and it all depends on the situation. But you also brought up the same point. You relied on the tend and befriend. You wouldn't the fight or flight. You went and found more people to help you, which is a very natural thing to do, and it's generally worked out for thousands of years. So it's a good strategy. So yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Last couple of questions that I have,
Sure.
because I don't want to take up, you're just
That's all right.
super interesting to me. And I know that other people can be interested. So Mike had mentioned, Mike is my husband, for those that are listening, had mentioned that you had just, casually mentioned that your foot got blown off.
No. I had a toe.
A toe. Okay. Toe.
Not blown off is not. Yes, my toe was still intact. It was sewed back on, but not a really exciting story. So, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like if my foot or any toes on or extremities were removed from my body and then had to be reattached later, that would be somewhat traumatic.
We'll save the details for that for another conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience and just, women in general, just as far as like protecting themselves or firearms or misconceptions about anything?
No, obviously we could talk about it for a long time. I think like we've talked most of it, go with your intuition. It's literally what you've been gifted with as females, as opposed to us men. We're real linear, stupid animals, and we just trial and error is the thing we do. So go with that. And like anything, you're training, you got to just keep training and sort of don't just keep shooting paper, get your heart rate up, see how you're going to function with your heart rate up and different positions, and come up with, some sort of training that puts you in a natural, situation, whether it's sitting or, falling over or whatever it may be. Don't be afraid to do a few of those things. Of course, safety is important, but you could do all those things safely. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate that time.
Of course.
All right. That is it for our wonderful interview with John, ladies. I hope you guys have an amazing week and you guys get out there and do not be afraid. Great job. You made it to the end. You are one tough mother. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support the work that we do and keep the good lovin' coming, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening. What's that? You're one of those crazy mother followers that wants more of this nonsense? You got it. Subscribe to the Moms Love Guns YouTube channel, follow us at Moms Love Guns on Instagram, and join our free private Facebook group to connect with other women just like you in an encouraging and non-judgmental community. If you want to share even more love, share your new favorite community with a friend or all of your friends, maybe even a few enemies, just to be safe. Get out there, overcome your fears, be not afraid. You have got this.